our session presented this morning by Mr. Andre Breytenbach. Andre, very welcome. Welcome back, I should say. Welcome back. So, ladies and gentlemen, for those of you who are joining us for the first time this week, my name is Dion Barnard. I head up Executive Education at the UFS Business School. I'm also the Program Director of the Advanced Certificate in Project Management. And the purpose of these guest lecture sessions is to assist our students with bridging that gap between theory and practice. And we aim to sort of provide students with a glimpse into the real world of how projects are executed. The theoretical foundation is always very important, but there are some realities out there in the world of work that we have to account for and make project management a value-adding tool, but from a realism perspective. So this morning we have back for the third consecutive year Mr. Andre Breytenbach from the Coca-Cola Company. Andre, welcome again. And Andre has in the past sort of given us some great insights into what it takes to set up some real world operations and the challenges that goes with it, but also the joys and the satisfaction that comes with the successful implementation of his projects. So these guest lectures are also made possible by the fact that our presenters so graciously do them for us on a pro bono basis. So just before I hand over to Andre, from a bandwidth perspective, please remember to keep your camera off, keep your microphone on mute to avoid any disturbances. And as per usual, you're more than welcome to use the raise your hand function if you want to ask Andre a question at any stage during the presentation. You're also welcome to type a question into the text box, and I will facilitate the asking of that question when the time is right. So Andre, over to you.
Well, thank you, Dion. Thank you, Prof, as well, and welcome to everyone. Yeah, Dion, as long as it's not difficult questions, because just remember the clever people is at work busy working and I'm not sitting with them. So yeah, as long as it's not difficult questions, but I'll try and answer the best as I can. And yeah, then the presentation as I'm sharing it now is a very basic and straightforward presentation. It is meant to just for you guys to enjoy. So and just show to you guys how do we experience it in a database, in an operation and getting projects like this off the ground and what we're faced with. And I've tried to keep it as visual as possible. So yeah,
100%. We look forward.
Let's go for it.
You have a good track record, Andre.
Oh, thank you. That's good to hear. Thanks, Dion. Yeah, then so just some background. We operate in just from a company point of view, we operate in the southern eastern part of Africa. I'm going to just switch on my layers. Yeah, so obviously we operate in the whole of the southern Africa, and then all these parts up here is also part of our company, and then we've got a bottler in Ghana as well. And yeah, Dion, when I retire one day, I've already put in my application. So I want to go and retire here, the last 5 years of my life, you know. So hopefully I'm successful and see if it works out. But yeah, and from a company point of view, just how do we fit into, so we are called Coca-Cola Beverages South Africa and Africa as a whole. How do we fit into the whole Coca-Cola system? So what you will see is Coca-Cola, the Coca-Cola company, is responsible for obviously the marketing, the adverts that you see on TV, and the very famous secret formula. And then obviously what gets put into the product, and the design of the bottle and all of that. And then obviously there's some regularity stuff that we need to comply with. And then we, as a bottler partner, is responsible for this portion of the whole distribution, the supply chain. So this is how we fall in. We obviously get the sale, we produce it, and I fall under this section over here, and then it follows through to the consumer. From a Coca-Cola Beverages Africa point of view, we've got, I think it's 15,700 people that we employ so far. 70% of the total Africa company we produce in South Africa, and we've got the 13 countries that I've just listed. You'll see the names over there, and we service 600,000 outlets across Africa with 30 bottling plants across the continent. And in South Africa, we've got 7,500 people. I've got the new figures. This is actually a very old number over here. We have placed close to 600,000 coolers in our system. This is a very outdated number, but this is the coolers that you see, the Coke fridges that you see in the shops. And then, yeah, we've got 4 sales territories, and we've got 12 manufacturing plants all over the country, which one of them is the Wadeville plant. You'll see it over here. And so I'm just going to get the next. So this is our plant based in the old industrial area of Johannesburg, which is in Wadeville. This is also the biggest canning plant in the Southern Hemisphere. And we've got 6 production lines running on this plant, and we do about 40 million cases a year that we produce. And this is just some of the products that we do. We do our famous brand of Coke, and then we've got all the flavors as well. We produce our juices and our waters here, and then the energy drinks as well. And what you'll see is Monster as well. And you'll ask me, is Monster now part of Coke? No, it's not. They are a partner. We bottle for them and distribute in the market. So we in partner with them to produce their brands as well. Yeah, so let's get into it. This is a can filler and a seamer. So the can filler obviously fills the product, the rotable part in the middle. It's a big, it's about I think it's about a 4 meter in diameter. And then this section over here, you can't see clearly, but you call that a seamer. That means that puts the lid on top of the can and folds the edges over so that the product doesn't leak out or something comes in. And this is what we've basically installed in the plant now. So just a high overview, why did we do this? Why was it important for us to do this? We had equipment that worked well. Why do we need to go to? So just to bring your attention to this portion over here, you'll see, not to go into much detail, but the filler sits right at the end of the line. From a flow point of view, this is where it works best for us. And then the product runs on the lines, and then it splits basically into 2 areas over there. So the first big thing that we had to do was obviously align the can size, the can diameter to the international standard. The can that you see now in the shops is what we had to do. If you remember, there was a big, short, bulky can that we previously produced. So we just aligned to the international standard, and that obviously required a different change part in the machine. Also, you'll have a look at the photos over here. This is the old equipment. This machine is about 20, I think just over 20 years old. And obviously it's costly to maintain it. And we then had to decide, do we bring it back to basic condition? The cost of bringing it back to basic condition versus installing a new machine with new technology, higher rated speeds, what would work best for us? And then, like I just said now, we've got 1 filler over here, and you've got a dual backline. So that means is in theory the dual backline. Now the backline is where the cans get shrinked into cases or six packs. That means they are only running at half the speed they were supposed to. So yeah, and we then install a new filler that will run much faster to make this equipment run much better. And then long term, do we install another filler and split this line up into two? So that is a long-term plan. Not sure if that's going to happen right now, but this is what we're thinking about and being strategic in terms of slowly but surely upgrading the plant. From a budget point of view, and not getting into too much detail about the costs and all of that, we basically looked at a couple of scenarios. I just explained to you, one of them is just taking the current equipment and bringing it back to basic conditions. What would it cost us? Old technology. And one of the biggest problems with old technology is the change parts and the electronic components becomes redundant. So if there's a failure, you are forced to upgrade in any case. And we see that quite happening often in manufacturing plants where you start building up you've got one old part on a machine and one new part on a machine, and that that just creates problems for us. And like I said, the choice number 2 was okay, just install the filler and the seamer, or then the double side. But from a cost point of view, that was very expensive to do it, so we obviously went for just the filler and seamer.
Andre,
Yes.
if I could maybe come in here, and the students must please join the conversation. When projects like these are scoped, I really enjoy the fact that you started off with why. Because we've had several conversations this week already with regards to what justifies a project, what is the rationale behind a project, how do you get support for your project, and I'm curious to sort of understand if you could give us some insight into how this project, it was obviously flagged by circumstances. It could have been increased demand in the market. It could have been that your other plants' production capacities was also under pressure. You obviously run a thorough risk management process within Coca-Cola. So can you give us some more insight into how this started to surface and how it got to the point where you had to put different business cases on the table and select the best one?
Good question. Thanks, Dion. So for us, I think the biggest risk at that stage was, okay, let me take a step back. We actually started this project in 2017 already, where we said, listen, we need to do something over here. We are running at a very low speed. We had too many breakdowns and failures on the machine, and it became just very difficult to fix them. So then if you're going to look at the OEM cost, the original equipment manufacturing, the cost for us to call them out the whole time to come and fix, it started adding up quite a lot. And that was then the decision, guys. Do we replace? Do we just rip out all the old parts, or the failing parts, or the worn parts, and just replace? What would work best for us? And then, Dion, yes, demand played a big role. Obviously, from a company point of view, we want to grow. We set ourselves targets, and the approach, in marketing, the product to the people. How do we do it? Why do we do it? And if we need to do it, how do we try to get the products produced? So that was one of the main reasons why we do it. And then from a company point of view, we pride ourselves in staying up, with new technology. We want to run more efficient. from a electricity consumption point of view, and all the equipment unfortunately consumes a lot of electricity. So, you know, as a responsible company, we want to make sure that we run as very efficient as possible, and then speed is a big challenge for us. Obviously, the more we can put on the floor, the better we can do it. And then that's one of the reasons why we are all over upgrading and installing new machines to keep up to the demand of the customer. So yeah, in short, I hope I've answered.
No, brilliant feedback. Thank you. And I remember the last time we had this conversation, you were also as a company entering into the space of renewable energy, and I assume the consistent supply of energy and the impact on these machinery is also an issue.
Yes, definitely. Just making sure that what we can generate, we can use. Yeah, Dion, sure. So many stuff that we can look at in terms of just running more efficiently as a company. And then this is one small part of it. Just to mention as well, I said the project started in 2017, and generally in 2018 is a good time for for a project to get installed. But you'll recall that a sugar tax levy was imposed, and that obviously delayed the whole project. You know, all the funds were pulled back, and yeah, and then 2020 COVID came, and it even delayed it further. And this year we said, listen, this is it. Now we can't wait any longer, because otherwise we are going to run into capacity constraints.
Yes.
All right.
Andre, Tsepo also posted a comment/question here, and he asks, do you also use measures of net present value and other financial ratios when you do the financial modeling on the feasibility of these projects? And he says he's just thinking about, you know, unforeseen costs, and he compares it to how property developers underestimate maintenance costs. So he says and asks a lot. I think the crux of the question is, to what level of detail in your feasibility phase does financial modeling then plays a part?
So yeah, Tsepo, no difficult questions, please. But you know, only joking. It plays a big role. And this whole thing it's not just like someone decided, listen, we think it's a good idea. We run through various models and scenarios to say, listen, what about that? If we can't we do it this? I mean, looking at the different suppliers across the world, what can they do? Now, it plays a massive role, and we put it through a model that will show us the payback period. It tells us, and I mean, in the business, we've learned also that, you know, there's a certain percentage. I can't recall, I want to tell, I don't even know what it is, but there's a certain percentage, and I think it's about 10-15%, where we say, listen, we make provision for unforeseen costs. You know, and this specific project as well, there was unforeseen costs as well. Small stuff. I think the project team did very well in scoping it right, but definitely a reality, yes.
So Tsepo, just say thank you, and he apologizes for the difficult question.
It's a good question. I like it. Yeah, then so obviously we've done all the work, and now there is manufacturers out there that we normally partner with, and they then get now the word is failing me. They get the opportunity to tender, and that takes place. And yeah, no, part of the whole process is not just who's the cheapest, but we put them through a whole grading system. And this is just a very basic one. There's, you know, there's a lot that we also put them through, but basically looking at, you know, can they deliver on time in our timeline? From a technical expertise, we grade the guys. And what do we think based on previous experiences and machines that we've got in other plants? we look at the technology. Our engineers look at what they've got, what can they give us, does it fit into our framework, and will it work for us? Quality for our company and our product is exceptionally important, so we focus a lot on that. And then, interesting enough, two big things for us is, three things, is the skill of the aftermarket support. Because if our own technicians and engineers can't fix the problem, we have to get hold of them. And how do we get them there quickly as possible? Is it possible for them to do it? Is it possible for them to service us remotely, and how good they are? And then obviously from a company point of view, you don't want 6 different parts. We've got 6 lines in our plant. You don't want 6 different parts of a filler lying in your engineering spares room. You would like to standardize it. So that's one of the big criteria that we looked at as well. Cost of spares, lifetime cycle not that, we didn't scope that, sorry. And then the technical solution on our problem, how does it help us? So very basic criteria that we basically a panel looked at and say, listen, this is how we think this will suit us best. And based on this and others, obviously looking at the cost as well, we award the tender and say, listen, please start with the project. All right. So just from a volume demand, from a company point of view, it is expected our summer starts in September, and then it is our silly season and peak season, and we start producing. So we start already building stock, basically stock levels, increase our stock levels in August. In some plants, we start even earlier, depending on the shelf life of the product. But we generally do this. Now, if you want to do big changes or installations like this, you wanted to do it in your quiet time of the year, which is which is best. You do it, get it over and done, test, and when peak hits, you are ready. So that's our product. Now, we've got an internal joke: a project cannot be a project if something doesn't go wrong or there's some challenges. Then it was too easy to be called a project.
Andre, so I love your seasonality. Do you think with big data and all the data analytics tools, we'll be able to eventually find out how much of those Coke has got brandy in and how much has got rum in when they get drunk?
We already know that. So
you already know that.
No, but interesting time. I think the brandy line is straightforward at the top. We'll I don't know where it tracks, but no, we'll definitely do it. Yeah, from a project point of view, there's always challenges, and I think the success of a project team, is how do you handle these challenges, and how do you get through them, and how do you manage them? And just quickly an overview. I'll get back to the challenges that we faced just in a slight overview, but just in short, the total project is about 260 days. Let's run off 260 days from when we started up until we will end it. We're currently sitting in September. So far, most of the stuff went perfect. Well, the project team executed it perfectly. And with some slight hiccups and interesting, I'll talk about that now. And then we basically were here yesterday. FSP is producing our first sellable product. We needed a day for that, and I was fortunate enough to have a quick video on that, but I will share with you guys later on. So just in preparation for this whole project, not so good photos, but I would like to quickly show them to you. So you'll see these sales over here. From a production point of view, the filler is your most critical area, and all our fillers is most probably in the front half of the manufacturing plant. So without dust and dirt and particles flying around to other fillers contaminating the product, we had to seal off it properly to make sure that it doesn't continue into the next production line. So you'll see over here, where the guys had to cut out. So we prepared that. We cut out all the equipment and staircases and pillars and all of that to make way. Firstly, to make way for this machine to come in. We actually brought it in with a crane into the plant, and yeah, it was a tight fit. But this is how we started preparing for it. And then the old filler, we started stripping it and, you know, dismantling it so that we could remove it. Eventually there was nothing left of it, and then the open floor. And funny enough, I don't know why, but if I had to take you back to I just want to take you back to this picture. You'll see the staircase alongside here. Your conveyor starts there where the cans come into the line, and then this whole section down here, it's a picture. I don't have a picture. We have got like a can rinser where we rinsed the cans with water. And I think 20 years ago, they scoped their project not right, or there was something went wrong, and they had to lift the filler, let's say about 40 centimeters high, 40, 50 centimeters, just to get back. That was the cheapest way. I don't know why, but that's the only conclusion we could get to. So we had to now dismantle or break them down. And part of it is this conveyor is 1.8 meters high as well. And the normal conveyor is 1.5 meters. So this was all the old stuff we had to change with the new project.
Andre, and I assume that's the classical example of something you didn't anticipate and you didn't plan time and material and professional services to remove that, eh?
We actually had, we knew about this upfront. Funny enough, one of the stuff that was a delay, Dion, to get to your question, is we were hiring like a normal jackhammer to break down these plinths or pillars that the filler was standing in. And this was supposed to be done in like a couple of hours or 6 hours. We had 2 or 3 jackhammers in here. We were ready, we're going to break it down. We ended up hiring this vehicle like a Bobcat that took us 2 days to break it down. So yes, definitely a delay that we didn't anticipate how quickly it would be to break it down, you know, so, or how long it would take. But yeah, to your point, we knew about it, but we didn't know it will take that long.
Okay, thanks.
And this, you can see some of the preparation as well. Obviously, we can't install a new filler on a floor that looks like this, you know, with, you know, all the areas. We had to do it properly. Got in a professional company that epoxied our floor. And when we epoxy it like this obviously seals it off for bacteria and mold and growth, anything like that. So from a quality point of view, making sure we're adhering to a good standard as well. And talking about the challenges that everyone can relate to, that influenced us quite heavily, was COVID, obviously, from a worldwide point of view. Now, just to get to this COVID, why did it affect us? Not in South Africa with our people, but the machine was manufactured in Germany. And when the people came out to start scoping the project, the Germans all started getting COVID. And the company just said, listen, no, we're not going to do it. We're not going to send our German technicians out. The local guys will do the installation. So that was a big challenge for us. That's not the normal standard for us to introduce or to install a line. The people that manufacture it is the people that come and install it. So yeah, that was a big challenge for us. But we knew people in the industry in South Africa, and they were very good, and they did a phenomenal job installing the project, which gave us a lot more confidence in them to you know, going forward in what we did. And then obviously a very famous picture that you're all aware of in KZN, we had the riots and the roads. Now, just to get why this affected us, the ship was bound to dock in Durban, and I'll talk about that later. And a week before this, the riots happened. And you can just imagine the delay in the harbor, you know, because the containers were not leaving the harbor. So the ship was delayed a good week to offload. And I think that was one of the major challenges, Dion, where we had to make a decision. Are we going to go ahead, or are we going to take a risk in installing this machine and still be able to produce to the demand in our peak season? So major challenge for us when we couldn't get it right, because the big problem is when you bring a big machine like that, it is on an abnormal vehicle, and your local law enforcement needs to accompany the vehicle as it goes along. And there was only one approved route, or basically two approved routes. It was the N3 from Durban up until Joburg, and it could only, this one we could travel day and night, 24 hours. The alternative was to offload at PE. The challenge there is distance, and we could only travel during the day via the N1. So yeah, big thing for us, and so yeah, we had to.
So Andre, the I hope I'm not preempting, but planning a project like this, and sort of anticipating from a risk perspective everything that could go wrong, and putting your contingencies and your mitigating measures in place, obviously is not it's not done by one person alone. Can you give us some insight into the team approach that you probably use to plan a project like this, and to anticipate all the unforeseen circumstances as far as possible?
Yes.
And just for the record, I'm never going to give you a hard time for your pre-mortems again, because there was two in one project.
For sure, pre-mortems is what it's all about. Sorry, Andre. Yes.
Yes. Yeah, Dion, no, there's a big team working on this. Obviously, there's a project team, and with a project team leader or leader that manages everything for us. And this is a very experienced guy that's his work. He just installs new equipment. He focuses on improving. That's his job. He just runs with that. Then we've got input from what we want from a plant specific point of view. The unit manager at the plant played a massive role in also scoping what we need, what we want, how can we do it, what's the challenges, what's the skill of the people, just making sure that we understand the demand of what we need to do. And then we call it the center of excellence in our plant, in our company, and they also play a big role. When we basically present the project plan to them, and they then sign it off. So there's a big team looking at this. And if I just had to do it about headcount, there's about 20 people, about, let's say 15 to 20 people that actually took a decision for something like this to happen. And you will then say, listen, is there red tape when there's 15 people involved? In a big company, there's always red tape. But I must say, decisions like this is quite easy. There's obviously questions from a feasibility point of view, practical point of view. Can we do it? Can't we continue with the old one? But it goes quite quickly. I think it took us about 2 weeks, 3 weeks to get the ball rolling on the specific project. Making the decision. I hope that answers the question.
That's amazing, and that's very refreshing, eh? Well done.
Yes. So part of this plan, and I'm going to share a video with you guys, a short video, is keeping the rest of the employees in the plant excited. We basically came up with a process where the guys had to name the project and to make it their own, take ownership of the project. The current people on the line, also, just to get them part of this. So remember, part of this whole process is that everyone is involved. So the team doesn't get off while the machine gets installed. They are part, they learn, they see how things work. They obviously take ownership of it. And then just, basic thing from project that we've learned, any form of project that we do, small, big, you name it, communication is very key. How far are we? What do we do? When is it starting? And this is just an example of This is just an example of how we communicate to the people. Let me just play the video.
Ngokwe-email yam endinayo apha kum.
You can hear the sound, yeah?
Advance for the new season to start training. Looking for a new machine, more opportunities, less cost, reduce
I hope you could hear the video or the sound of it. I'm sure you did. But it's just one of the examples that and it's a simple short video that gets shared via WhatsApp messages to everyone, just to keep them updated on everything. Sorry. So we talked about the container that had to arrive in Durban. Now, just to give you some background, when the riots happened in South Africa, the ship was sitting in the harbor and it couldn't get offload. I think it was about 3-4 days. The ship was just sitting in the harbor, or just outside of the harbor in Durban, waiting to be offloaded, and there was a massive queue in the harbor itself as well. Just one thing that I've learned from this whole project, a simple app that I downloaded from a Play Store or on your phone, that made it easy for us just to see how far things are going, because we couldn't always get hold of the people in the harbor. And when we get hold of them, they didn't give us an exact answer on, okay, the ship is next in line, it's going to come in the next hour. We didn't get that type of information. So we just resorted to our own way of trying to find stuff like this. And like I said, a very simple app on a phone gave us the opportunity to do this. And because of this, because the ship was waiting so long, we then deliberated, do we send this to PE, offload the ship there and then bring it back? But obviously from a customs point of view, it was very difficult to get it right. So we've taken the decision, leave the ship where it is, the container, and we'll offload it in Durban. So you could see the ship actually arrived it arrived, well, we started tracking it on the 26th of July, where we said, listen, okay, we need to know what's going on. We could then see the ship is actually in the harbor, and that gave us the indication, okay, it's going to dock now and it's going to offload. And then you can see how long it took for the ship to offload and actually leave the harbor. But when we saw this, we knew the container is there and it could be delivered to the plant. And literally a day or two later, it was delivered at the plant. So because of all of this delays, I showed you this graph before. We actually did all of the work. What was supposed to be done over here, we are doing here now, which is very challenging in terms of stock levels, because we knew about the project. We started using this opportunity to ramp up our stock levels for peak and for this project. But because it was delayed, we were starting eating into our stock levels for peak. Now, the fortunate part about this whole thing is we didn't stop producing in June. We kept on producing up until we removed the filler. So that gave us a little bit of an advantage, so that we don't run out in stock in December. And this is how the product looks like, how it arrived at site. Big, massive container that had to be offloaded with a crane, and then it get placed, somewhere where we could then unbox it and check that everything is right. So this is also some of the equipment that arrived on site. We had a whole area just dedicated for this equipment to be staged and for it to be assembled. And that's the filler in the early stages of being assembled. You can see no more pillars, which we all are very thankful about. And this is the actual part where the can comes in, and the can is right in between there in the middle, and it actually gets filled there. Now we've got 120 valves that fills a machine, and I'll show you a video. This machine fills 96,000 cans per hour. So you can understand why we wanted to upgrade the equipment. And there's a later stage of the machine. You can see the filler inside there. And there's just some safety covering for the rotable part so that someone doesn't get injured when they work close to it. And then the conveying as well. From the machine in, you see all the cans go in there. It comes down a chute in the can, this conveyor into the machine, and then it comes out your seamer. Your seamer is the equipment I told you about that seals the lid on top of it, and then it goes out to the back end. So all of this work also then taking place. And something interesting, just from a quality point of view, we normally make sure that when a machine like this it's not just start up and produce. From a quality point of view, we need to test the equipment first. And one of the interesting quality tests that we are doing, if you look closely into this can over, you'll see small granules. It's actually polystyrene, small polystyrene balls. Now you would know polystyrene is basically static, so it will cling to anything. And this is one of the tests that we do to make sure that we do. Now, I mentioned previously that we had a can rinser that rinsed the cans with water. That was very effective. But as a company, we want to be energy efficient, and we want to save, sustainable as well. So we've installed a rinser or a piece of equipment that actually blasts this can in the inside with sterile air and then remove all particles. And this is part of the test that we do. So you'll see it comes in, then it gets turned around, and then it gets blasted from beneath to get all the particles out. And once that can comes out clean, we know we've passed the test, the equipment is working well, we can start producing. Something interesting how we've done it. So I want to show quick videos for you guys. We're nearly done. Dion, you must just keep me honest on time as well, but we're nearly done.
You're doing great, thanks.
All right. From a time point of view, so what we do over here is everything is installed. We call it a dry run. We physically switch on the switches and we see if everything's turning, if we most probably didn't forgot a bolt or nut somewhere. And this is how it looks like. And once this is done and everything, it runs for a couple of hours, you can see 96,000 cans per hour. And then it runs, and then, everything works well. There's no clashing parts. So the technicians has done a phenomenal job in getting this machine installed in a very short space of time. The next test that we do is we take a couple of 100 cans and we now start the whole process of simulating filling a product. And what you'll see here is basically Fanta cans being filled with water. Just to see if the whole filling process works, we then take the can and we go and analyze it. Sorry, we take the can and we analyze it, see it's on the level, and if everything is done properly. So that's the whole process where we just fill with water, test the machine as well. And then the next step is actually filling it with project. And this is our first sellable product that we started running over here. And this was actually done yesterday. We actually in the process of completing this, but yesterday we actually got it right to produce the first sellable product. I'll quickly just show you how that looks as well. Now, just to tell you guys, you'll see how the filler runs. It's actually running at 50% capacity. I'm just going to take it a bit back. If you just have a look at it again, so that's at 50% capacity. Normally, when it runs, you struggle to see what is written on the can. That's how fast the machine runs. Yeah, and then what's the next step?
Andre,
Yes.
sorry, I just go back to the previous one, please. Those cans that's lying on the floor, is that all the rejects? That if it finds it in the filler, that it just ejects it, or what is it?
You were not supposed to see that, Prof.
Oh, I'm sorry. Okay, I didn't see it.
That's poor housekeeping, and I was cautioned about it when I presented it to the team. But well done in spotting that. Yeah, we pride ourselves for world-class standards, and it's obviously not our standard, but it was from the previous run, and you know it is a given that when a plant runs like this, you just want to get the machine going.
Yeah. Andre, sorry. It was just purely out of habit. This makes me feel young. I started my life as an engineer doing automation. So, yeah, sorry.
Well spotted, yes. Yeah, so what's the next steps for us? We are producing, so just to check, so the old machine was only producing 300 mils on the machine. We want to introduce more packs, and this is just to be more versatile and make sure we can keep up to the customer's demand. And this is the type of technology that we talk about. We don't need a dedicated line for a specific pack size. We want to change in between pack sizes on one machine, so which makes it more profitable for us. Because it's new equipment, our production process controllers, obviously that operates this machines needs to be trained on how to do it. We've got a process that we call autonomous maintenance, so which means these guys do daily certain cleaning tasks and observations on the machine to make sure that they last long. And you know, they need to obviously show where to do it, and part of it is like greasing the machine and making sure the lubrication is fine and the parts are turning. And then from maintaining this machine, our whole technical team needs to be upskilled as well on how to maintain this new equipment. And then the next big thing, the rush now from today onwards, is to fill up the gap that we've eaten into in the stock build. And once that is done, so this, sorry, just need to take a step back. So for the next 10 days, we will test 300 mil production. And then 10 days after that, we're going to test a 400 mil production. And I see we've planned about 8 days as well, about 8 days for the 500 mil cans as well. I doubt that we will get to this now because it's not this pack size is not big in demand. It's more your 300 and your 400 mil. It's the biggest demand. So we'll focus on this now just for the essence of time to make sure we get through our busy season. Yeah, fill up the stock level. That's me. That's me. Thank you.
Sorry, Andre, I know I'm pushing in front of the visitors, but I just like from a project, and I'm going to use project as an excuse so that I can ask the question, right? From yes. A project's perspective, I mean, how did the plastic bottles, because I suppose that became another like almost pre-mortem scenario that all of a sudden nobody wanted you to make plastic bottles again. Did you then sort of just up your tin production?
So, Prof, no. Just to get clarity there, we still produce a lot of PET bottles. This plant just is specific, dedicated to canning lines.
To cans, yes. Yeah.
Yes. Yeah. So no, we didn't reduce the amount of cans. In fact, that stays we didn't reduce the amount of PET bottles. You still get it in your 2 liter, your 400 ml, your 440, and all of that. We are just increasing the demand on cans as well.
Okay. Andre, and then the other thing I want to ask, I'm using project as an excuse, but it's very a personal thing. The best drink in the world is on the previous slide, and that's a cold Coke in a glass bottle.
Yes.
Right? Is there any specific reason that South Africa has got so little of that? Because I see in some countries, when you start getting to the 400 mils and whatever, even with the plastic tops and stuff, are still glass, and then just the 2 liters are plastic. But in South Africa, it seems to be everything. It's either the plastic or what you call it, or it's a tin. So very few actual glass bottles.
Prof, we still do it.
Okay.
It gets produced in our Pretoria plant and in our Port Elizabeth plant. It's obviously meant for a specific market. If you go look at your 300 ml glass bottle, it's normally in a restaurant that you get served it where you can sit down, and because there's a deposit on it. The problem is when we issue it, you know, in a general trade, you tend to take it home. And that glass doesn't come back. So from a working capital point of view, we just we have to inject so much glass, it just doesn't make sense for us. So the target market is the person sitting down in a small restaurant, a big, wherever you want to buy the cool drink, where the shop owner or the waiter can take it back. So that's the main strategy.
That makes sense. Yeah.
Andre, here's an operations question from Bianca as well, and she asked about, have you implemented 20 keys at your plant for continuous improvement?
I don't know what 20 keys is.
Okay, yeah, so that is an operations methodology to ensure everything from productivity, commitment, and quality assurance, housekeeping, the whole thing.
So what I can tell you, because it sounds like a very similar project a process that we implement. We call it supply chain maturity assessment techniques. And that talks about everything. In fact, it talks about 5S, it talks about your people, it talks about your teamwork, it talks about quality, safety, health, all of that. So everything that we do in our plant gets captured in that whole plan, and then we get graded, on an international standard on the maturity of the plant. And the more you do stuff, the more you implement, the more you improve. Your score goes higher. So a good world-class standard is a 5 rating. We introduced this about 2 years ago in the plant, and we're sitting at a 2.4 rating. So yeah, we still got a long way to go. It's typically your Germans, your Japanese, that's at a 4.5. They're very dedicated in what they do, and we aspire to get to that. So in the best in class in Africa is sitting at a 3.2 rating. So that's where we aim to do. So yeah, we're very similar, if I can understand it, very similar process, which it's got a long list of requirements to attend to.
Yeah. So she said she was just impressed by your great housekeeping, and she thought that you had a system of sorts going there. Tsepu also says, for interest's sake, do you interact with other plants on best practice?
Other plants or plants?
Plants, sorry.
Yes. So we've got call it a community of practice. So each department, we break it up in smaller groups. But we've got a community of practice and our center of excellence as well, not just South Africa, but Africa as well, where we share good, good examples. For something that will work with us, we'll put presentation. We often have once a month, we get everyone together, and then somewhere across Africa, we look at good practices that gets implemented, and we then take it, and then that becomes a standard across the business. So through sharing that type of information, we have the opportunity to now up our level of performance and standards. And it's not just like one plant is the good plant and the rest is falling behind. So if one is good, we all get back to that standard, and then someone else does something better and we get back to that. And that's how we drive the excellence in our plants.
Yeah, that's great to hear. That's great to hear. Any other questions, ladies and gentlemen?
So I'm talking far too much this one, but Andre, I just have to say, one of my biggest surprises in my life is when we did our MBA study tour, Dion, and I was smacked by our students yesterday because I did it at the wrong university, right? But we went to Atlanta, and we went to Coke's head office in downtown Atlanta, and one of my biggest lessons is what I think we all learned was how professional it is. I don't know, for some other reason, Coke is fun. Coke is happy. Coke, you're expecting beach umbrellas and those kind of things. And then you find out how professional that business is. They're almost like merchant bankers but they make a fun product, but they do it so professionally. And also that they have the highest ever performing share ever. So if you had Coca-Cola shares, you're rich, right? So it's just over time how that business is. But the perception to create, and I think our big lesson is, if you want to create a really fun product, you have to have a really professional business. So I just want to say, we were like absolutely amazed with it.
Thank you, Prof. And that's obviously the standard that we apply across the business. We want to have fun. And I must tell you, I'm very fortunate to work for this company. They really look well after employees. One of the big examples that I want to tell everyone is we heard across South Africa where during lockdown, either people lost their jobs or people got paid half of their salary or a percentage of their salary. And our company just said, listen, we're stopping all the other expenses, but our people we will not impact. So we were very fortunate to be looked after, and I think because of that, Prof, is that in return, employees wants to give back to them and say, listen, the company is handling us in a professional way. We want to do exactly the same as well.
Yeah, Andre, and like tongue in cheek, one of the students said, "Okay, what's your long-term vision?" The guy said, "Very simple: a Coke tap in every house." I suppose that would have solved the COVID stuff.
That's a wonderful vision to have.
Andre, if there's nothing else from the audience, I just have to ask this question, and it's probably not fair, so you can also send me on my way if you feel like it. But how has the pandemic and something like the riots in KZN and Gauteng that you've told us about, how has that impacted the Coca-Cola mindset for doing business in future? Is there anything immediate that comes to mind that you can say, okay, this has changed, and it's probably going to be a change that will continue into the future?
Future ways of dealing. Let's start with the COVID side. I think the interaction of people. Because we had the sales force out in the field, and they were going into a shop, and that will continue. That will definitely continue because there's certain stuff that as a company we feel needs to happen in a shop. You want to make sure that the first thing that you see when you walk into a shop is a Coke product. So that will continue. But I think as a company, we're focusing very heavily on expanding our footprint on, from a sales point of view, through like Takealot, Pick n Pay online, all of that. So we're very involved in getting our product online, available online. So that wasn't a big focus in the past, but I think COVID forced us into that direction, and it's actually working well for us. You can go onto Pick n Pay's website now, or ShopRite, or Macro, or Woolies. You can just go there and you'll type in Coke and you'll find your product. So partnering with those guys and say, listen, this is what we want to do. We want to make sure our product is out there and available on an online platform as well. I think that's the biggest change from a COVID point of view that we did. Interesting enough, Dion, I remember the first time we had this this first lecture, it was in your auditorium. And look where we are now. It's online, and I think this will continue. And something that we spoke about the other, we spent a lot of money in upgrading boardrooms and making it video friendly and sound friendly and comfortable. Massive money went into a boardroom and an auditorium in our plants. And we were talking the other day that we should convert that into smaller offices, or not have boardrooms anymore. So that's one of the points we're still deliberating about from a company point of view. All meetings from our side is taking place online. Technical meetings. And just by the way, this project, normally what happens, so when engineers put the equipment together, the project team would normally go to Germany, and they would go and see it running in Germany before it gets shipped here. And we looked at that whole process online. So Yeah, very interesting was from a COVID point of view. That's how I think the new way of doing business in the future is going to happen. Customer interaction as well, same process, you know, we deal with that. Then from a rights point of view, didn't affect us too much. We were very blessed in all our operations that the plants weren't looted, the plants weren't burned down. We were very, very fortunate. And the problem is we were right in the heart. I mean, our KZN plant was right in the heart where everything happened, you know. So we were blessed about, you know, because we push in a lot in the local communities, you know, and we actually saw communities, and I wish I'll share a photo later with you, Dion, where and it's true, the local taxi association came to our plants and stood in front of the doors and said, no one will come in here. We will not allow people to. I mean, it's the first time ever I saw. Yeah, it was amazing to see that, you know. So we affected. There was a sales office that was burned down and looted, you know, but luckily no one injured. We lost the truck as well, you know, but that was the extent of our damages. Going forward, oh sorry, and then the big thing, some of the most, I think the biggest loss during the riots was the shops that was looted and burned down. We lost over 50 million rand worth of coolers in all of these shops, which is extensive. I fell on my back when I saw the number, but it's the reality. So as a company, what do? We try and partner with the shop owner and help him build up his shop again, and we will obviously replace the cooler as well.
Okay, all right. Listen, I don't know what your time is like. Do you have time for one more question from Strauss?
Sure.
Strauss, please proceed.
Morning, Andre. Thanks very much. I'd just like to know, on the Monster, you said that you're bottling and you're distributing it. Isn't that a competitive to you guys?
Not necessarily. I mean, we also make a profit of it, and there's obviously a partnership with Monster to say, listen, we'll sell it a reduced amount to you, and then you distribute it or produce it. It's a very good partnership going on with Monster, and it works for us. I hope they stay with us for very long and they not just pull away and start their own manufacturing.
Yeah. Thank you very much.
Good stuff. Andre, from our side, let me just see, is there another hand? No, that was it. Listen, from our side, just once again, you've blown us away with your great example, your great presentation, and it ties in so beautifully to all the conversations that we've had this week and the theory that we teach in the classroom. And thank you to you and your company for availing your time and all the preparation and effort that goes into this. You know, the hour that you present is probably an eighth of what goes into preparing for the session, and we really appreciate it, and we would welcome it if you would join us in future again.
For sure. Well, thank you for the honor as well, Dion and Prof.
Thank you very much, Andre.
100%. Thank you, Andre. Have a nice day.
Thank you to the rest as well. Have a good day.
Bye-bye.
Thanks, all the APM students. Can you just pop back into class quickly? Thanks, Dion.